What is going on, y'all? KMBest here. Let's take a look at Human Torch First Steps and how I chose to deck build around him on day one. Human Torch First Steps is a fascinating card. A lot of what he does is get really big. So, baseline, you play him and at the end of every turn, he gets +1 bigger. If you fill the lane he's in, on that turn, at the end of it, he will double instead of just going +1. For me, this meant a good excuse to play a full buff deck. A deck full of all of the cards that buff and benefit from buffs in order to make Johnny Storm as optimal as he can possibly be. This is an attempt at sort of maximal Johnny Storm. I think you'll see a lot of other people playing him in less highly invested packages, just using him as a pretty big guy, maybe with a little bit of inbuilt synergy, but not really going out of their way. I think that one of the easiest ways to figure out how good a card is figure out how good it is highly invested. I would not be surprised if what actually makes this card stand out from the other threes is the high level of investment payoff versus, say, just playing it as another version of Speed, where it's like a 3-8 to 3-10 that's like pretty good, or another version of Gladiator. I think that if you're going to pick up this card, what you're going to want to be looking at is that high roll situation. So with that in mind, let's take a look at the deck. This is the list, and you'll notice it's a slightly modified version of the debuffs deck that I was playing towards the end of last season. A lot of the same things are going on in this list. It is all of the buffers, all of the things that have been pushed recently. It is no secret that Marvel Snap has been making tons and tons and tons and tons of really unique and powerful 2s and 4s that buff stuff. You are playing all of them. You are playing Mr. Fantastic. You are playing Surge. You are playing Galacta. You are playing Gwenpool. And you're also playing absolutely monstrous payoffs. Your worst payoff is actually typically like a Mr. Sinister, but even that is a legitimate threat. A Brood can be absurdly dangerous in a deck like this, and that is to say nothing of Human Torch First Steps himself. One of the other things that's really unique about this build is that Iron Lad is an extremely good card in this deck. It copies not just the payoffs, but also the enablers. So for example, you could get a Galacta or a Gwenpool, but when you look at what's in the deck, you're actually also fairly likely to copy Human Torch himself, or a Brood, or a Mr. Sinister. And that is effectively like getting one of those with all the buffs that you would apply to it just for free. Of course, this is also a Zabu deck. I personally have long lodged my complaint that I think Zabu is perhaps a little bit overpowered. Now, as far as budget replacements, I do think that this is a deck that does not have a ton of budget replacements for the cards that people are going to really want to be able to budget replace. For example, Mr. Fantastic First Steps is actually key to the strategy here. One of the things that I've been trying to talk about in these videos more is whether or not you need to be playing cards like Mr. Fantastic or Surge, and bluntly, in a deck like this, where all of your scalers care about buffs, you do. This is a deck that is built around the interaction between the buffers and the buff targets. So if you're missing some of the buffers or some of the buff targets, you're not really going to be able to play the deck at full efficacy. Now, that does not mean that you cannot play Human Torch First Steps without Mr. Fantastic in your deck, but I do think that the two of them are probably closer tied together than you might want to admit, or than would be necessarily good for people who did not pick up the card. The other thing that Human Torch First Steps does is that he is an extra guy that sort of justifies the Iron Lad in here. This is a deck that has almost 0 bad hits for Lad. It's like Juggernaut, maybe. And the rest of what it is Iron Lad being something ridiculous. I don't know if you're aware of this, but an Iron Lad that gets +1 every turn and then doubles its power is unbelievably good. And that is sort of what Human Torch is adding to this. Whereas if this were a Sebastian Shaw, Iron Lad copying a Sebastian Shaw is not nearly as good. And so when you ask what Human Torch's niche is, I do think that Human Torch has a fairly unique niche, as he is significantly better with Iron Lad than something like Sebastian Shaw could be. I also think that, unfortunately, this kind of deck is sort of limited to these exact cards in it a lot of the time. There's not a good Gwenpool replacement, there's not a good Galactic replacement, there's not a good Surge replacement, and there's not a good Mr. Fantastic replacement, there's not a good Brood replacement, there's not a good Mr. Sinister replacement, and there's not a good Human Torch replacement. If you want to play a more budget version of what this is going to be, you could try out a Surfer build, which I think you'd probably be able to put together. It is fairly straightforward, a couple good 2s, the rest of them are 3s, maybe 1 4, maybe 2 4s. Maybe you're feeling lucky. That's pretty much where I'm at for this card. I have been pretty impressed with Human Torch First Steps, but I'm not gonna jump out of my seat just yet. And I'll tell you why. He goes in all of these decks. I believe that. I have not had him truly carry as much as the shell he's in carry. I think that there are going to be a lot of people who are going to be very successful with decks like this, and they're going to say things like Human Torch First Steps is broken. I'm not fully convinced that it's not just the shell he's in being a little overtuned. I do not think he is better than Mr. Fantastic First Steps, and I do think that if you had to choose between them, you would choose Mr. Fantastic First Steps. I think it is possible, maybe likely, that he ends up a little better than Herbie. That's sort of where I'm at. I think it is possible, very likely, that he ends up better than The Thing, which is what's coming out next week. I don't know where he'll end up compared to Invisible Woman. As is, I think he has a chance at being one of the better cards in this season, but definitely not the best. With all of that said, let's get into the card-by-card breakdown. Zabu at 1-2 is an absurdly good card. You run 4/4 drops, you love when they cost less than that, you have a million different ways of making them cost less than that, and Zabu is the cheapest one. Making sure that you are actually able to get your 4 drops on the board is really crucial. Some of the time, you'll end up in situations where if you have to choose between playing a buff and making sure you get Scarlet Spider value, that's not a situation you ever really want to be in. So when you get a chance to play a 4-on-3, you are almost always taking it, especially if it's one of the 4s that buffs. Pedro Pascal is in everything. It's actually kind of a very funny gag that the card Pedro Pascal is in every deck, and the actor Pedro Pascal is in every movie. Much like Pedro Pascal in movies, he is very good. You just kind of get sick of seeing him all the time, but it's hard to argue because he's very, very good. Mr. Sinister is a solid cloner. This is a fairly minimal investment, but you do often find yourself filling up the board in really dramatic ways, so he's not really all that much worse than Brood a decent amount of the time. Planning ahead for games where you're planning to play this and a Brood and a Scarlet Spider is actually really difficult. Like, I found myself running out of space early and seriously considering whether Zabu was worth it just because it was taking up a space and I didn't like that. Sometimes you have these amazing draws full of discounters. You have Zabu, you have your 2/2s that do this stuff like Surge and Mr. Fantastic, and then you're like, wait, I can't play stuff there because if I do, all my stuff fills those lanes. It is definitely a tension that exists in this list. Surge is quite good here, but she's not so good as Mr. Fantastic, largely because she often requires you to play things in suboptimal patterns. Mr. Fantastic doesn't require any of that of you, but Surge is still a very solid option, in large part because you do run enough cards because of your board space issues, because of Juggernaut, etc., that you often will not want to Surge over Mr. Fantastic. Johnny Storm wants you to fill up lanes, Brood makes sure your lanes get filled. Johnny Storm wants you to buff stuff, Brood makes sure that there's good targets for buffs in case you miss Johnny Storm. Very straightforward. Just good. Just straight up good in decks like this. I enjoyed having Human Torch First Steps in here. I think that there are probably other directions you could go with him. Like, I think you could play a more minimal investment package, like him in sort of a Merlin mid-range deck. I don't think that doesn't make sense. I just think that you often end up wanting to play whatever card there. Like, if you're going to go play a Merlin mid-range deck, it's like, okay, I mean, you could also just play Fenris Wolf Gladiator. Do you actually need this guy to do that? And I think largely outside of these kind of shells, the answer is probably that you don't. I am a little lower on Human Torch First Steps than I think a lot of other people are, and it might just be because I am just sort of like addicted to Shadow Kinging stuff at this point, but it does seem like this guy is a bit of a target on his back kind of guy, and that's not always a good thing to hyper invest into unless you have some way of protecting him. And in this deck we have Juggernaut, but like, if you're playing him in like a tech deck, you're probably not playing Jug Cosmo. I can see you doing that in Surfer, but he's probably not even the best scaler in Surfer. It's just an awkward situation. Juggernaut does double duty here. The first thing he does is his normal Juggernaut thing, aka the Eliath Impersonator. The second thing he does is to protect your highly invested lanes from any interaction that may happen to them. This requires you to play for priority some amount of the time, and you will have to get used to that. Fastos is pretty solid. It's just that you'll often be on your good draws taken off of him a lot of the time, because something like a Mr. Fantastic will hit a 4-drop that you'd rather play. You play that on 3 instead, or a Surge will make you play something other than him instead. I do think he's solid, but he's a pretty replaceable card here. I don't really think that people are looking through this deck and thinking, I wish I had a budget replacement for Fastos, but like, you definitely could. You could absolutely replace this guy. I think he is the least impactful one of these cards, and lots of that is that he is just a bit pricey. This deck wants to play like a 4 and a 2 on 5, and I know that's 6 energy, but trust me, you'll get enough discounts on one of them that you should be able to do it. It's just that this guy ends up being a little bit awkward because you want to play him early, but whenever you have something good going, you'll have better plays. And when you don't have something good going, he's not good enough to rocket you back into the game. If you skip turn 1 and 2 and you're playing this guy on 3, that's still really bad, and you're going to retreat when they snap you. I was pretty impressed with Scarlet Spider, and it might have been because there were a decent amount of Sanctum Sanctorums, but it felt like he carried buffs pretty well, and he did a lot better in this deck than I thought he would, I should say. I think it's rare that I find myself impressed with a card like this, and like, obviously, it's a 4-drop. It better be impressive. But also, it's a 4-drop in the most advantageous possible spot for a 4-drop, right? You're playing it in your Mr. Fantastic Zabu Surge deck, so it gets to just be really good no matter what the text on the 4 actually is a lot of the time. That said, I really was impressed. I'm like, obviously you play her, and obviously there's no good replacement for her, but I'm not in love with her the way I used to be. You know, it just doesn't feel the same. Me and Galacta, we just don't have that spark anymore. And I feel bad about it, but it's just true. Me and Gwenpool, on the other hand, ooh, we have that spark. I don't even know why. I just like, I feel like she's better. I feel like, I don't know how many people have like put words to this, but I am fairly sure that Gwenpool is just better than Galacta almost all of the time. The fact that Galacta is no longer +3ing is a real hit to all of the stuff that she does, right? And so the fact that you have so many of these good targets for buffs means that Gwenpool isn't missing in this deck in the same way that she would in anything else. You have like 4 premium buff targets between Brood and Mr. Sinister, and of course we have Human Torch First Steps, and even Iron Lad counts, and then you have Scarlet Spider. There are so many premium buff targets that she just ends up being better in this deck. She's just giving more points. Lad is the secret weapon. This is just a phenomenal beast of a card. You haven't lived until you've gotten an Iron Lad to 10 power and copied a Human Torch. You genuinely just haven't lived until you've played the Human Infinite. It's just great. This is one of the most fun cards in this whole deck. All right, y'all. Thank you so much. As always, I've been KMBest. You've been phenomenal, and nothing can change that. Let's jump in to the gameplay. Boy. Oh my god. I'm horrified. Let's find out. I died. Let's find out if we're doing okay. You believe Fantastic Four end of turn deck will be meta relevant? I don't know. Do they have 25? That's a lot. It's not 25 though. We did it. Jug, hopping the fuck guard. Probably a much more balanced card if I had to guess. I think they should bring back Deathwave. That seems like a pretty bad take to me. Ready for everyone to get access to KO tomorrow? Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of these decks just outstat it some of the time. Whoa. We lose? Oh wait, no. Human Torch doubles and wins us the game. There it is. Human Torch doubles. You win if they hit any other... I know. I know. They got their best draw and the only hit that won the game. I'm distinctly aware. Huh. Okay, so I gather you have a Shang-Chi. Don't know how I figured that one out, but I did. Oh, damn. I actually win. Seems roughly correct to me. All right, I need one of my broken twos. I need a broken two. Right now. Not Mr. Sinister, baby. Hey, we actually got one of them. Fuck. I don't know what that means, but Zanade's a pretty aggressive snapper, so I'll live with it. Quite strong. Well, I mean, we'll take a tiebreaker, I think, by like a couple points. Yep. It should like be a Findom streamer. Just say I am broke. I'm not actually broke. Just I get double buffs. Damn. The solo. Thank you for the prompt. You guys stop. It's funny when I do it, but I don't think it's funny when you. I feel like it's mostly not funny when you guys do it. I have 2 cards in hand. I feel like it's just like not actually. Seems about right to me. Sacrifice Jin, but that costs me more power in the long run by not getting the buffs on the Brood. This is my highest power lane. Well, I guess we learned what that was. What if it's not actually quick? They have like Jin, Merlin spell, a couple actual cards, I think. I mean, I kind of figured they'd be cannonballing the mid. That's, yep. Why we did our thing. What the fuck was the point of doing both of those mid? Okay, we have drawn Mr. Fantastic. Over, bro. Oh, fuck, they have it too? That's fucked up. Told them they were allowed to do that. What? This is such bullshit. Snap this. I mean, we could do it like this. I know I tie right, but like, this is the biggest fucking guy to ever live. I think this is probably a little stronger. They're leaving? I don't think that's necessarily true. I think they could very easily be sniping. Yeah. A lot of shit could be happening.